Oh, hey, everyone. Kayla, I've got the agenda up. I don't know if you can see it, and we just emailed it to you. Larry, and Larry's here. Okay, we've got a quorum and we'll try and go as quickly as we can for the sake of all three of you. Amy, I know you can't, don't have audio and can't talk, but if you'll text me, anytime you need something, I've got my phone right here and I'll watch for text. Okay, Kayla, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, so it's 4:14. Today is June 29th, 2023, and this is a meeting of the Lake County Board of Adjustment. And we are here today because we just have one file of new business. Let me see here. So board members present. We don't have the ability for board members to do a roll call, but we have confirmation from Amy Tate and Larry Markham and Kayla Marcella being in attendance today. I don't believe that there are any additions to the agenda, correct, Anne?
That's correct.
Okay. The minutes, I did not have a chance to review the minutes, only the files. So I'm wondering if we can move the minutes to our next hearing.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sounds good. I just don't want to approve those if I haven't put any eyes on them. So
Yeah, it'll probably be easier too, as we've got some challenged audio right now.
Yeah, totally. Let's we don't have any old business on the agenda, correct, Anne?
That's correct.
Okay. So we will move into new business, which is file number 23-11. 211 Stargazer setback variance. And so the way that we'd like to conduct the hearing today is that we'll give our community planning and development staff the opportunity to walk us through the application for the variance and the staff report first. After that is completed, then the applicant will have an opportunity to add any information that they felt may have been left out of the staff report or may feel important for the board to hear to make a consideration of the file. And then we will open the public hearing after that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anne in our community planning and development department.
Thank you so much, Kayla. This is an application, as you said, for request for relief from setbacks. The property owners are Mark Janae and Lindsay Kuhn, and the property in question is 211 Stargazer in Centennial Heights. As all of you are very much aware, we have a situation in the Centennial Heights subdivision whereby this subdivision is within the Ag Forest Zone District, and there's an immediate conflict with that given the size of the lots and the minimum lot size that's required in the ag forestry, which is 5 acres. And normally the lots, or I think the majority of the lots, if not all of them in Centennial Heights, are about 1/4 of an acre. Even with the property owners doing a lot consolidation, having had purchased 2 lots and consolidating those, it is still very, very difficult to put in a septic system, a well, and meet the zone district requirements of, in particular, in this instance, a 50-foot street setback, or from the edge of the right of way. And so immediately, as we have seen in many other cases within this subdivision, it's very difficult for them to realize reasonable entitlements on the land. They do have a single family home with a garage. And they're asked today of the board for consideration is an accessory residential greenhouse. Staff would suggest that while we are, Lake County really is a food desert and it is very hard to find locally grown produce. I think that there's certainly merit in the applicant's request, as well as a situation that is not a result of the owner's doing. So one of the findings within a variance is that, again, this is not the owners of their doing to put themselves in this situation. I would say the zoning as it lies is the conflict. And they are really put in a position of realizing hardships from normal entitlements that property owners would be able to assume. It seems reasonable that a greenhouse should be a accessory use that a property owner should be able to realize. So with that being said, we have provided some information on the criteria in the code, which does demonstrate compliance. And again, the big part being that we need to have a finding that if the strict adherence of the code was upheld in this instance, it would create a hardship on the property owners. I would go into a little more detail. I'm going to be cognizant of that we have some difficulties in communicating this evening, but these particular property owners have really gone through a very burdensome process to be with us today. They purchased the property unbeknownst to them that the lot consolidation was never completed on the lot. The previous property owner never finalized the plat. They've had to go through an incredible journey in getting that plat done. We were able to work with the surveyor that originally did it, get it recreated, but to get it signed by the lender is sometimes an act of God. And so we've really witnessed these property owners go through just a tremendous burden and even being able to be before you today. So the journey to this variance has been difficult for them at best. And they have really stuck with it and seen this whole process through to be good stewards and to do everything legal and by the letter of the law. So we would just really want to offer to them that they've done an amazing job in getting even to this point. Getting this over the finish line will be an incredible success for them. The one thing that I want to mention is within the materials that were submitted, I did take in a site plan with a scale, and I estimated that a 10-foot minimum setback would meet the needs that they had, perhaps knowing that their leach field, I believe, was about 10 feet from that setback. However, as I forwarded to you from Mark, they do need some further consideration. They don't believe that 10 feet, they think that's still overly burdensome to be able to locate the greenhouse. So I am going to, unless you have any other questions for me, turn it over to Mark and Lindsay and let them answer any questions and further explain what type of setback they do think that they could meet from. And we are taking this. Code does say that we take it from the property line, which typically is the same as the street, but as you will see from the site plan, they have an easement of Stargazer Circle that encroaches onto their property line of 20 feet. So, or excuse me, 40 feet. So that immediately, additionally, if you're looking for something that's a little peculiar about their lot, they also have a roadway that encroaches on their personal property. So I don't think I think the 10 feet is still overly restrictive for what their needs are. And so first I'll just ask if you have any questions of staff, and otherwise I will introduce you to Mark and Lindsay. I'm checking Amy real quick just to see.
And this is Kayla. I don't have any questions on that. That's all pretty straightforward.
Okay, great. I do have a comment from Larry to the applicants. He says, "My apologies. Never had such pitiful connection on the stretch of road. I thought it was something else." So no worries, Larry. We see that you are here, and I don't know if you have audio now, but if you don't, you can always text me. Looks like you're going to try and join us.
Yeah, thanks. I can hear fine now. So I don't have any questions on your evaluate or your assessment of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Larry. Amy, I don't see that I have any text from Amy, so I think we are good. All right. Mark, if Mark and Lindsay are with us in the room here, if you've got your audio on, you will be able to see, or your camera on, you'll be able to see them. And I will turn it over to them and they'll tell you what they think would be the relief that they're seeking and the amount of setback that they need. Take it away, dear.
Okay, so we have our septic tank on the east side of the house. It is roughly, the edge of the tank is roughly parallel to the front of the house. As such, we cannot set the greenhouse back any further than the front of the house. The measurements we have pulled suggest that the front of the greenhouse will be at closest 4 feet off the easement. We're asking for 0 feet off the easement to give us a little leeway, but keep in mind that we will keep it as far back from the easement as is possible. Is there anything else that I should add, guys?
No, not unless, Larry, Kayla or Amy have something to ask you. The only thing that I would suggest is that, oh, yeah, oh, there's Mark. That's Mark. That's
Oh.
Mark. Okay, hi, Mark. Thank you for joining, Mark. We just got Larry here. So if you want to hang up, you can, or you can stay with us. Okay. So the only thing that I would just, I don't know if we've ever set a precedent of basically excusing a property owner completely from setback. So I would be a little hesitant to suggest a 0 setback. Yeah, I'd say you should at least maybe do a minimum of 1. The one thing about, you are in quite a predicament. And so not overly concerned about telling the Board of Adjustment that, be thoughtful of precedent. However, I think 1 to 4 would be a much better approach than just completely forgoing any kind of setback.
Understood. Yes, so I would like to update our ask to 1 foot off the easement. And keep in mind, we will keep this as far back as possible. We hope to be closer to 4 feet or maybe even 5 feet off the easement. And again, this is going to be off the easement, not off the property line. The easement is 20 feet from the property line, so we would be somewhere in the 21 to 24 feet off the property line.
And thank you for verifying that too. That easement is a 40-foot easement, and from your property line, it does look like that's the center
Yeah.
of the easement, and so that's a 20-foot. So they are impacted by a road and utility easement by 20 feet, which again, eats up a good portion of their property. Any questions?
Say that again, there's an easement or there's a 20-foot setback for utilities and road. And then you want to be like up next to that.
Yes, I'm gonna screen share their site plan. Can you all see that okay? So here is the easement that we're talking about. And so the property line is right here in the middle of that easement. So 20 feet of their property is already included within the easement. And so they're asking to have, they're gonna try to maintain a 4-foot setback, but they want some leeway. And so they're asking for the setback off of the easement to be 1 to 4 feet, somewhere in that range.
Well, that seems reasonable,
So-
especially considering the other easement. Go ahead.
Sorry, thanks, Larry. So Anne, in the statement of motion, then you would change that to reduce the setback from between 1 and 4 feet.
Yes, and you might want to just go ahead and just say that it, maybe reduce it to 1 foot with the knowledge in the hearing that, they're gonna try to increase that, but you change the setback to 1 foot and with the ability for them to go greater distance if possible, and they're, kind of giving the assurance that they will attempt to.
Okay, I think we can capture that pretty well. Anne and Mark and Lindsay, if you guys are done with your presentation, then I can open the public hearing, or if you feel like there's more information that you'd like to share with the board, we're welcome to stay open for that as well.
I don't believe so unless there are any other questions.
I don't believe that we have any additional questions, so we'll go ahead and open the public hearing today at 4:29 p.m. And did you receive any written comments or feedback on this? And can you just go on record verifying for us that the mailings were done and posting was complete?
Yes, the file was duly published, posted, and mailed. We did have to do an amended notice. There was a typo in the original posting, but all was duly noticed. We received absolutely no feedback. We received no calls, letters, or inquiries in regards to the variance request. Not surprising, because I think many of the residents in this subdivision are very aware of the situation. We did get two, I think it was two returned with wrong address, with wrong mailing address. But the code accounts for that. And so I would say all notice requirements have been met, and we received no adverse or negative feedback.
Okay, I will just go on record to verify that I did receive the mailing for the Board of County Commissioners too, so that was done appropriately and correctly. So if there's no public joining us today and we have not received any public comment at this point, I will go ahead and close the public hearing today at 4:31 p.m. So now that we're past this point, any additional questions should be directed to the board, and the board will chat with staff. But at this point, when we enter this stage of deliberation, we'll just make sure to keep any further consideration of the comment or deliberation between staff and the board. So I'll ask my fellow board members now if you have any additional questions or clarifications for staff. And then I will read a statement of motion into the record for us to decide on.
I don't have any additional.
Yay.
I'm good. Just wondering what they're gonna be growing.
More than just canned
All right.
cabbage.
Okay, I will go ahead and read into the record then a statement of motion for file number 23-11. At this June 29th public hearing, the Lake County Board of Adjustment made and seconded the following motion. I, Kayla Marcella, move that the Board of Adjustment approve the setback variance for file number 23-11, 211 Stargazer setback variance, reducing the street setback to 1 foot measured from the edge of the 40-foot easement and Stargazer circle as depicted on the survey dated 3/13/21 by professional land surveyor Leland Lechner, which is Exhibit A and will be attached to this motion. And further find, as conditioned, the requested variance is consistent with the Lake County Comprehensive Plan and the purposes set out in section 1.4 of this code. And B, as conditioned, there are special circumstances or conditions such as the exceptional topographic conditions, narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property that are peculiar to the land or building for which the variance is sought, that do not apply generally to land or buildings in the area. And C, as conditioned, the special circumstances and conditions that account for the need for a variance are not the result of the owner's actions. And D, as conditioned, the special circumstances and conditions are such that the strict application of provisions of this code would result in peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties to, or exceptional and undue hardship upon the owner of such property. And E, the granting of the variance is the minimum necessary to relieve the applicant of the practical difficulties to or exceptional and undue hardship in the use of the land or building. And F, as conditioned, the granting of the variance will not have an adverse impact upon the properties located within the written notification area as defined in section 3.1.7. And in determining whether difficulties to or hardship upon the owner of a lot, parcel, or other property exists, the Board of Adjustment shall properly consider the adequacy of access to sunlight for solar energy devices installed on or after January 1st, 1980. Moreover, the addition of a solar energy device to a building or other structure shall not necessarily be considered a structural altercation for the purpose of determining whether that building or other structure represents a non-conforming use as defined by this code. So can I please get a second on the motion on the floor?
I second
I'll
that.
second.
Third, fourth.
Okay. Fellow board members, is there any additional discussion on the motion?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing that I wanted to make sure to capture was kind of part of that conversation that we were talking about with the owners trying to move that setback as far back as possible. Is there a way for me to adjust the motion to include that or incorporate that, or just by that being brought up in the hearing, is that just something that we'll work with the landowner to ensure happens?
Certainly at your discretion, you could amend your motion to include, something either more than a foot, or you could just suggest on the record that you would encourage them instead of, so whichever way you'd want, you could increase the amount of the setback, or you could just ask them to try to be as further away as possible. So it's just whichever way you'd like to go. If you'd like to increase the amount of setback, you could go that way, or just encourage it.
Can we go? Sure. So I will just go on record to say that I do appreciate the applicant's thoughtfulness and their desire to work towards pushing that setback as far back as possible. And so with that being brought up in the public hearing, just will hope that they and request that they continue to explore those options to push that further off the easement if at all possible. So I think that'll be fine, and we'll just keep the motion the same. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Well, thank you guys very much. And that concludes our new business. We'll push our meeting minutes to our next hearing. And perhaps Ann and I will convene before then to get some training and make sure that our board members are appropriately seated. So we'll go from there. But thank you, applicants, very much for being here today and taking the time, and for accommodating the board. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. So we will adjourn today at 4:37 p.m.
Good night.
Thanks all.